Hello, my name is Tameka Empson, and I am a performer, or should I say an actor, singer, wannabe, I have to say. And my first time at Stratford was in 2004, a little while ago, in a show called The Big Life. The Big Life, the Scar musical. Sorry, I have to laugh because I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Okay, I bring it back. Because anytime I talk about The Big Life, I get very excited because The Big Life was a show like no other musical. Yeah. So at that time, I had done a few musical auditions, and they always ask you for an up tempo and a ballad song. But for The Big Life, they were asking for lovers rock, a bit of reggae, a bit of rare grooves. And I'm like, this is what we listen to at home. You never get asked to do, to get some song sheets of these types of songs. So I'm like, okay, so I went to Chappell's. There was a music shop called Chappell's at the time. I thought, go to Chappell's. But of course, reggae music and lovers rocks are not in Chappell's music shops. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have to swing it like I would normally do on a Sunday afternoon at home. You're changing the bedding, you're cooking and you're singing. So I came to Stratford Theatre, which I've always seen, and I've been to the theatre many times to see different shows. But now I'm going in for a job. So it's a bit different. And there were so many people that were there that you thought, oh my God, I remember you of TV, I can't remember the song that I sang. And at the time, Clint Dyer was the director. So I sang maybe Silly Games, which is a very high-pitched sound, song note at the end. Silly Games. I won't do it now, but if you know it, you'll know it. And you know if you can hit the high note or not. And I did my audition piece and it was great. And Clint Dyer took me to the side and he says, what about, I just had an idea. I said, okay, I'm not good for some of the parts. He goes, no, forget about the show. And that really made me feel bad, actually, because I really wanted to be in the show. But then he said, I've got an idea. What about if you were in the royal box, a bit like the Muppet shows with the two old men? And I said something like, I don't do boxes. Yeah, I don't do. No, put me in a box. No, I don't do boxes. I won't be in the box. Because I'm not, think about it. And then he gave me the idea of a elderly Jamaican woman who would be commenting on what she saw on stage. So I went away feeling a bit deflated because I really wanted to be in the show. So I went away and I thought, yeah. And I've always mimicked my mum. From a very young age, I used to go to Anna Shear Theatre School in Islington. And my first improvisation was me improvising as my mum. So the hands was on the hips. And she's a real Jamaican woman, And she said, Tameka, stop the noise. Stop it. Come here now. And I just thought, I'll tap into that. As an actor, you tap into what you know. So I came back and I did an audition for him. He goes, oh, okay, yeah. Okay, I think that could work. Moving forward now, I'm in the room. They've already started their rehearsals and everybody's knowing each other. So I was a very late addition to this. So you've got Victor Romero Evans. You've got Chris Tummins. These were the heavy deal. You've got Jeff Amer. You've got so many other people. And you've got me. And I'm sitting down there as a great fan watching these actors that I've seen on TV. And at that time, it was No Problem, which was I think it was on ITV, and it was like the first black show that you saw. So to see them on TV was like, wow. But now to see them live and in a show that you're also going to be a part of, I was very humble. So I sat aside and I was typing away and doing my little bits. And we didn't know. We knew it was a great show because it had great music, great actors, and it was really a real feel-good show. But I was very unsure about how I fitted in. So I used to cover the scene changes. And Philip Headley, who was the artistic director here at the time, he was very sweet to me. And I remember people talking about him, and he was very much the driving force behind getting Big Life made. They had done various workshops with the music and the scripts before I got involved. So when I met him here, I was literally by myself, and he was like, no, this is a great show. And he really gave me the encouragement. And what I loved about Philip Headley was he saw the bigger picture. And he would not be afraid to say, well, what about you trying this? And he would just leave it with a little seed and walk away. And he will come back and he will see what you've done with that seed. And that was very much the experience that I had with him on The Big Life. The Big Life sold out. And I remember that we extended for 2 more weeks. The first time it was at Stratford Theatre. And people just wanted to see it again. They wanted to see it. And it was so good because you saw a family, then they would bring the extended family. You would see friends coming around, and it was like a rotation. People had to keep seeing it over and over again. And then it came back again at Stratford Theatre, and then we went to the Apollo Theatre in Shaftesbury Avenue, which was a real big deal. And again, Philip was there to hold our hands, and it was, for me, to be a part of a show like that in the West End, where the West End wouldn't normally see a black production like that, and it being a production about the British experience, a black British experience. So when you have the Windrush generation coming over to Britain and seeing how their experience was, because I think a lot of people would write very happy letters back home, but it wasn't always the case. And The Big Life delved into that. It was very much a celebration of the Windrush generation, but it also told the sad side and the hardship that they went through, which not a lot of people knew about. So it was very pioneering. And, you've got people who would buy the books and they would audition by using some of the characters that we've done on stage. So that was really great. I think looking back now, I didn't really know, because I was quite young at the time, and getting involved in something like that, I knew it was something special, I knew we were making history. And I knew the place was Stratford Theatre, because that was what it stood for diversity, for telling stories from different backgrounds and inviting everybody in. So we knew that we was on something very good. And then time rolls on, you do different shows or whatever. And then Paul Syrett, who was the writer of The Big Life, called me up and said, oh, fancy getting involved again? I thought, do me a favour? Of course. But you sure? Because, yeah. So it was 2024 that we decided to bring it back again. So it was part of the Stratford revival season. It was so good back then, and to revive it now, it had to change a little bit because we had the Windrush scandal. And I was going to be playing the same part that I played before, which was Mrs. Aphrodite. And I just felt a responsibility to be that woman now, having gone through the scandal. Even though it was, and it is, a celebration of the Windrush generation, it was something that I needed the message to hit home. And if you know Stratford, you know the audience will always come back with something. And I encouraged it. I've always encouraged it. A bit of stand-up, a little bit of my stand-up days coming out there. But I just felt, okay, what are we going to get back? But what was interesting this time was that people really felt that the need to see The Big Life. For me, doing The Big Life again after the Windrush scandal was very important, because we wanted people to see that generation. So 2024 happens, yeah. Everybody meets up, and I'm like one of the oldest ones now in this production. Whereas before I was the youngest, I was the baby. I'm now slightly matured and slightly wider, but we don't talk about that part. But it was really good because we had a cast of young actors, some that I've known and seen on stage before, some I got to know. And what was interesting was they were generations removed from the Windrush generation, unlike the first time that we did it. So we had a lot of time speaking about what it meant to them, and like their props, their clothing, and how they spoke and interacted with each other, which was really interesting because my parents are Jamaican, and I hear it and I can just do it, and there's certain isms that you just know. But when you've got generations that are not so closely knit to that generation, there's a conversation to be had. So it was really nice to speak to them and hear their views, and for them to speak to their grandparents and friends. And it really made me stop and think about where we are, because I think with some mature or older people, you may not have these conversations, but that's the beauty of theatre. And for me, I really wanted them to come out the way that they did the first time seeing The Big Life, because it really is for them. And I like to describe it as a love letter to them, and to say that we've seen them and that we appreciate what they've done. And Tinu Craig, the director for the revival, was very pioneering in how we moved it forward. And there's something about seeing a show the way it was back then. You almost wanted to see it, as it was then. You don't want to have any changes. With Tinu, she had a very good vision of updating it without taking away the original style of The Big Life, because it's a period piece. We're talking about people coming in the 50s, the 60s, and keeping all of those, like having the grip and the hats and things. But I loved what she did with the colours. I loved what she did with the way that Mrs. Aphrodite was going to transform into this goddess. And I was like, oh, I'm not so sure, but she was great. And for me, it was really good to go back to it with a new energy, with a new cast, and having a new audience. And some people who saw it the first time came back. Stratford Theatre always has a good repertoire of audience members who will die-hard fans, who will always come back. And they will always shout at me, which is nice. It keeps me on my toes. Even though it's scripted, I have to be on my toes, so I always have a good drink of poos after the show, never before. Because Stratford, they're part of the show, they're part of the theatre, they're part of the show. And I look back and I miss it. I'm not going to lie, I miss it. I miss the theatre. I miss Philip, I have to say. And I must say, actually, the part that I played was covering the scene changes. And I looked at the show with different eyes, because we had a younger cast, and the love that they had for the show was very touching. And I remember, I'm crying, sorry. Why am I crying? No, sorry. It's just a very important piece, And I know that some people have left, have moved on and passed on. I didn't mean for this to happen, I just think I'm just very passionate about it. And it's only when you stop and think about what you've done. In the moment, you're doing the show, people love it. Oh, it's a great show, thank you, it was great. Thank you for telling my story. I brought my grandmother, I brought my grandchildren, and there was one particular woman. She came to see the show, and the first time, and she said that her mum was like my character that I play, Mrs. Aphrodite, and she said that she passed away. But after seeing the show, they went home and they had a Sunday dinner where they got all the grandchildren together, and they would interview her mum and said, Mum, what was it like? Was it like The Big Life? And they found out this whole other life of their mother, and their grandchildren learned about their grandmother. So this time she came back with her children, and we just had a moment and we cried. And there were so many people that came up to not only myself, but they came to everybody, talking about their experience, talking about what the play meant to them. And I'm glad that I did that. I'm glad that we all came together and made this show, from the music. And there's a friend of mine who has dementia, and the music gets them going. The music keeps them focused. The music gets them alive again. So you must never underestimate music and what that does. The writing of The Big Life, some of it is hard to hear, but I think you need to hear it to understand that time. But at the same time, it was very much a piece where people could laugh. People could say, yes, I remember that. That is what happened to me. That's what happened to Earl, you know? And it was definitely a piece where I hope that people would go back to their home, their community, and would see somebody and say, oh, hello, I went to see a show. It was about the Windrush generation. What was that like for you? And it's an opening to a conversation, because I think that part of British history has never really been spoken about. We speak about a lot of different things, but we don't really speak about that. And I know that there was a school that did a production of The Big Life, and it warmed my heart because now the younger generation are learning about it, and they can perform it and they can try different accents. And it's not just Jamaican. There's, from Guyanese, you've got Trinidadian, you've got all these other accents that people can experiment with. And I never want that to die out. I never want that to die out. I want it to be celebrated. And Stratford did it. Stratford really embraced a piece of theatre that spoke volumes. And I'm always grateful to Paul Syrett and Paul Joseph, the composer, because without their collaboration, Big Life wouldn't happen. And without Clint Dyer, Mrs. Aphrodite wouldn't be here. And again, it's a great place to always come back for me, to be honest. Yeah. When we did the show the second time around, I really wanted the Windrush generation to come to the show, because it's one thing when you're doing the show for the public, but it's their story, and I really wanted them to be a part of it. And Flo at Stratford Theatre, she was involved in the community aspect of the theatre, and she got around 50 or 55 local residents to come to a matinee. This was brilliant. This was brilliant from Flo, because I don't know how she did it, and I know there were more people that wanted to be involved, but she did a program where they would come in like mid-morning, have a cup of tea, and they would then play dominoes. They were playing cards. It was a nice social event for them. And then they would come to the matinee show, and then they would go back to the bar and have dinner. So this was a real night or a day out for them. So I said, well, if you're doing that, I've got to get involved. So I came down, in the full dress as Mrs. Aphrodite, and I said, oh, you all come to see me. Oh, it's so good. Thank you for coming. Yes. And the cast members are here. So they didn't know what was going on, because obviously they've got to warm up. But I don't really have to warm up. I just sit down there. Not that nothing to do with my ego. It's just that I ain't got time to be lifting up my leg and doing all of that. No, that's what they can do. I ain't got time to do that. But they came after their warm up, and they're like, what are you doing? I said, oh, yes. And I introduced every single one of the cast members to them. And they was like, oh, it was so good. I enjoyed it. And I really felt sorry for them, because they had to go back and do another show. But, that generation, you can't tell them no. They want to get involved. They want to ask you everything. So-and-so? Yes, I know them too as well. Yes, you're from this part of the island? Yes, me too. And it's like, okay, we need to usher them off. But it was so nice that we had that interaction with them, because, when do you normally go out and see people and tell them thanks, and that was me, and you look like me when I was young, and so it was really nice that Stratford did that. And it's a point of keeping the community alive, and letting your work live on. That's the thing. I love Stratford Theatre. I can't lie. I love it. There's not many places that I love. Not many places that I can say, yeah, just go and hang out. But I can hang out at the Stratford Theatre. I can hang out. And it's always nice. Every part of Stratford Theatre I go to, whether it's front of house at the box office with Ange and the girls, or whether it's the bar where I can sit down and have a nice little corner. And of course, everybody comes to the corner, isn't it? So they come out and stuff. But backstage, it's like my home. Do you know what I mean? I know my dressing room. I know the little back, like how do you get up there quicker than going this way or that way? And, where's marketing? You always need to know where marketing is to get the flyers and the posters. You always need to know that. But it's so nice. It's like coming home. It's like coming home. Every time I've worked here, I felt like, why has it been so long? Why has it been so long since I've been here? But then after that, it's like, I've always been here, It always feels familiar. But it's the people that are not here anymore. That's the only thing that's a bit different, But what I love is I'm actually in the Philip Headley room. The Philip Headley room. You right, Philip? Oh, by the way, true story this. So when we revived it, we met on the 6th of January, 2024 in the rehearsal space. And that was when I found out, and then quite a few of us found out, that Philip Headley had passed away. And that floored me. It floored me because for some reason he was on my mind, because obviously we'd be speaking about how we were going to approach the show. We met with Tinu, Paul, Cyrus and I met with Tinu, the director. I said, I must call Philip. And I never got around to calling Philip. And I just assumed, for some reason, I don't know why, I just assumed he would be there on the first day of rehearsals. And that was when I found out that he had passed. So we had a moment and I thought, you know what, this is the reason why we're doing it. We have to do it in his honour. And Paul Cyrus had the idea of dedicating the book to him and various people in our lives that meant a lot to us in this production and who we dedicated it to. And Anna Shear Theatre School, Anna Shear herself and her husband, Charles Verrill, they passed away last year. 2023, sorry. They passed away in 2023. And a few other people. And it was a real time for us to give thanks. And at the top of the show, I decided my character's called Mrs. Aphrodite, but her name is actually Lynette, which is my aunt, my dear aunt who passed away. Mona, as in the great Mona Hammond, an actress who I adored and would have loved to have worked with. And Philomena for Philip. Those three people were the names that I said every night as a way of thanking them, because each of them had given me something for Mrs. Aphrodite. And the first night that we opened, it was the previews, no word of a lie, I could feel the spirit of Philip. And he sat beside me and, sorry. It's just that theatre is real, Theatre is real and we tell stories. And every story comes from something. Sorry. Every story comes from something. And this play, this musical, there's fibres of real stories throughout it. And Philip was very much in that box with me. And I remember saying, because obviously, people coming in, I was sitting down and getting myself ready. And I thought, Philip, no, not now. Just sit in quiet, just sit in silence here. Not now. But he was very much there. And I like to think that was him just giving me the pat on the shoulders to say, you know what, you've got this, you can do this, But it was for him and it was great. Yeah. 140 years. Yes, happy birthday. I'm glad to be a part of it, actually. I'm glad to be a part of it because there's been some real good shows here and real good actors here as well, But what that would look like in the future, I actually hope in 140 years, you still have actors. No AI. Yeah. Or if they have an AI, it's only for part of a show and then that's it. But I want real actors to come about. I think in 140 years, it will still be the same, I think. Because it's been 140 years of what Joan Littlewood wanted. where she wanted diversity. She wanted people to have a voice. And it's been doing that. So I can't see how it wouldn't do that for the next 140 years. And hopefully I'll get a nice little, I don't know, poster, plaque maybe, on a door, something. Just saying. You know what I mean? Just saying. No pressure, no pressure, no pressure. Just a little.